Bobby Seagull is a mathematician and national numeracy ambassador who's offering a solution to impulsive spending by calculating that the ideal waiting time for purchases is precisely 2 days and 21 hours. And Bobby is with us here. How are you today?
I'm really excited to talk about this because I think all of us should be making better spending decisions.
Absolutely. Now, it's quite precise, 2 days and 21 hours. How did you arrive at that time?
So with Vanquis, we commissioned research speaking to 4,000 adults. And based on the adult sort of purchasing, spending patterns and behavior, we sort of worked out that was the optimum point in which people are least likely to regret any purchasing decision. So 2 days and 21 hours.
Does it apply to all purchases? Because you wouldn't wait that long for a pizza, would you?
Yeah, obviously this is like an average that we've come up with. But generally, the reason why Vanquis have come up with this research is because on average, adults make 7 impulse purchases a year, which are £150 or more. And we're trying to help people think about why they're making the decision. So it's not about saying don't buy things, but it's about making sure people make some consideration. That 2 days and 21 hours is a rule of thumb, but it just makes people think, can I wait a few days before I make that decision?
Do you think it's quite easy or is it difficult for people to follow that? Because it is an impulse and they'll just want to buy it.
And I think it's about giving people almost to empower them to make them think about their decisions. Because of course, when we're, scrolling online or walking in a shop, we'll see things and like, I want that. And this research today is all about making people take a step back and go, actually, can I wait a few days before I make that decision? So again, it's just about empowering people.
And the research highlights that the items people regret buying the most include bikes, games, consoles, and clothes. So why do you think those items are maybe the most common?
I think with games consoles, I know that as a teacher, gaming is very popular. Yeah. It's probably like one of the most popular activities in the world in terms of spending power. So people see things, these brilliant adverts, which are well designed, and then they just make that decision. And later on, they realize, maybe I overspent or I don't perhaps use it as much as I thought. So I think it's trying to understand that, there's advertising. There are things that we want, but making sure that you're, not just buying on your immediate impulse.
So how do you step back and convince yourself that you need those 2 days and 21 hours?
So one thing that actually we've come up with, Vanquis, is sort of a cost per use formula. So again, it's on the website itself, vanquis.co.uk. If people think about how much an item costs and how many times they might use it, then by thinking about a cost per use, it might make them think, actually, I'm going to get a games console, but I'm only going to use it, let's say, 5 times a year when my friends come around for big birthday events. Maybe it's not quite worth it. So it's getting people to think about how many times they'll use an item as well.
Because it says, of course, that Hoovers, freezers and fridges have the best cost per use. Because I suppose there's things that you need. If you have got something wrong with your old one and you need a new one, you don't have time to do the 2 days. Yeah.
And again, with that, I would say these are obviously essential household items and they are probably difficult to defer, especially if you need a new one or something's, a bit faulty. But it's just making people take a step back and say, can I just wait a little bit, just see what other deals are there? And again, it's about learning to sort of manage our impulse. Because we're humans, if I see a chocolate bar and I'm like, I definitely want that I'm not going to wait 2 days and 21 hours. But for larger purchases, like if you're making a vacuum cleaner or a washing machine, I think it is sensible. I'd definitely be telling my mum, Mum, wait a little bit. And again, that 2 days and 21 hours allows us to have a conversation about why we should wait a little bit.
The regret is such a huge thing, isn't it? Because I know someone who, they buy stuff when they're stressed. And a week ago or so, they bought some like wine cabinet, I think. And then almost immediately after they ordered it, they think, how is this actually going to fit in my house?
I know. And again, we are humans. We sometimes will get things on impulse, but it's about trying to just make sure people have that considered thought about why they're buying something. Because if we bought everything on impulse, our house would be overflowing and we'd have spent far too much. So it's just about making people think about why they're spending.
Although the thing is, a lot of people say that the impulse purchases they make boost their mood, perhaps, because it's a way of treating themselves. So how do you balance that with being responsible.
Yeah, so I think we're not telling people not to buy things or not,
Yeah.
again, we are human. Sometimes we buy things that make us feel good, but it's about just having that little voice in your head that says, oh, I heard Bobby Seagull mention that you should spend, wait 2 days and 21 hours.
Yeah.
At least if that little thoughts in their head, then they might go, actually, do I really need it? So it's about just having that little second questioning with yourself.
Yeah. Now, Generation Z tend to make more impulse purchases than any other age groups. Why do you think that might be?
So I think, Gen Z, Gen Z, depending on how you want to say it, they've grown up in an environment where social media, Instagram, TikTok, they're constantly being fed ads based on the things that they search for. So I think they're just used to interacting with things and making, again, my parents, even myself, I would go to a shop, walk around, and maybe I'll come back later. But for them, it's constantly on their phones, on their laptops, etc. So I think just society's been evolved to make things easier to buy.
And I think there's been other research that said that you're much more likely to make an impulse purchase online than in real life because you associate computers and iPads and stuff with being playful and all that. It's all kind of luring you in.
That's how tech's been designed. Tech is a good thing. Tech makes our lives easier to manage, but we just should be aware that when we're online doing shopping, scrolling for things, the reality is our impulses sometimes might take over. So we just need to make sure, take a little step back, wait, if you can, wait 2 days and 21 hours, but just about being conscious that you don't want to just click on the first thing that you see.
Is there a way to incorporate it easier into online shopping? Because as you say, it's always there. You might put it off the first time you see it, but then you might see it 10 minutes later and you're still wanting it.
Oh, again, this is I think that's a challenge for all humans.
Yeah.
What I sometimes do is I'll bookmark something or save it. And if I see it again, I'll come back later. So I think it's about just making sure that adults are more mindful about their spending. That's all. We're not telling people not to stop, to stop spending, but just being a bit more mindful.
Once the 2 days and 21 hours is over, how many people do you think end up buying the thing? Do you think it's kind of significantly reduced?
So I think it's actually about minimizing the people that regret items, because we know that people in society have got to buy things. They've got to buy, their bikes, their laptops, washing machines. But that sort of rule of thumb, 2 days and 21 hours, if they purchase it after that, they're likely to minimize the chances of regretting. So that's what we want, because people have to buy things, but we just sort of don't want people to regret their items.
Absolutely. Well, where are we able to go to find out more information?
So if you go to vanquist.co.uk, you can test out the formula for yourself, and hopefully it will make you more mindful in your spending.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for talking to us. It's been great having you here.
Thank you, Toby.